Hello everyone and welcome to Sunup. I'm Lyndall Stout. Spring crops are really starting to show some progress thanks to these days filled with sunshine. We begin with a couple of updates, starting with our Extension canola specialist, Josh Bushong.
Well, compared to previous years, we're breaking dormancy about like normal. Some fields are breaking dormancy a little bit earlier than others, just depends on how much rain we go over the winter. A couple guys were lucky enough to get a couple rains this winter, so the crop's looking good. It's been growing vigorously last week, and we're starting to bolt. And some guys are still semi-dormant if they're a little bit drier, but we did lose some stands over the winter, kind of compared to last year.
In terms of management advice, what kind of things should producers be thinking about this time of year?
Just like always, we're out looking for bugs. Royer hit on army cutworms last week, which was excellent. We did see quite a few more of those this year than we have in previous years. We are starting to see some other worms, some diamondback moth larvae. They're still out there and they're chewing on the leaves, making shot holes in the leaves. Sometimes it's just kind of a layer of the leaf, so it looks kind of like window painting where you can almost see through it. But we're looking for diamondback moth larvae. We're looking for aphids from here to harvest. Once we get a little bit more mature, we're start looking for false chinch bugs and some variegated cutworms and some other things. So on top of bugs, if some farmers do still have weeds, if the plant started to bolt yet, or the main stem started to elongate, and you can kind of see the bud at the top. Once we start bolting, it's too late to spray a herbicide. We'll take a severe hit on yield, especially if we're using Roundup. Some say the Select and Assure might be a little bit easier on the crop, but in general, once we start bolting, it's too late to spray the herbicide. There are some guys that have a very thin or marginal stand that have quite a few weeds out there, where I'll still recommend going out there and hitting with the herbicide just to clean the field up, but they will take a hit on yield. So once we start bolting, the only other pesticides we'll be spraying from here to harvest will be an insecticide, more than likely. So far, I haven't seen too much pressures from blackleg or any other diseases, but we're watching for that as well.
And this time of year, you and the team get ramped up with your field tours. Talk about that a little bit.
Once again, we're going to be doing our statewide field tours starting third week of April, and we'll put a link on the website. Everywhere from southwest Oklahoma to northeast Oklahoma, predominantly north central Oklahoma. So we'll have about 14 tours set up. A producer can go to the nearest one he's closest to, and we'll spend about an hour and a half with the producers talking anything about canola production they want to know. So we look forward to that event each year. I think this is our fourth year to do it, and usually have pretty good turnouts.
It's a busy week for sure. And then closer to harvest, you'll have some harvest specific training. Talk about that.
This year we're trying something new. In joint with the Great Plains Canola Association, we're putting on some canola harvest clinics. We do have 4 locations planned for Oklahoma: Clinton, Canton, Kingfisher, and Pond Creek, starting the April 30th and going in about 2 weeks into May. Be looking for those as well. We're going to talk anything from staging the crop to know when to swath it, and then talk a little about the equipment itself, how to set the combine and so forth.
And we know last year was a tough year for both wheat and canola. Is the picture a little better this year, or too early to tell?
It's too early to tell. For the most part, we are setting yield. You can kind of see the size of the buds are kind of indicative on what our initial yield potential is. But what you've seen in canola in the past is it does compensate quite a bit for a lot of other different stresses. If we do get some April freezes, those apical buds and the meristematic buds lower down on the plant will put out new shoots, so it does compensate quite a bit. But for the original yield potential, it's being set right now.
And the way I understand it, this is the 10th canola crop growing right now in Oklahoma?
Yeah, we've been growing at OSU for about 12 years now, but this is probably the 10th year for producers to be growing it. So we've come a long ways in a decade, but we still have quite a bit more to learn.
Okay, definitely. Josh Bushong, thanks a lot. And now